And we are back for another quick video right here at the complete free Flutter course. So in this video, what we're going to do is kind of a repeat of the previous two videos, but this time we're going to do it for the other function, whatever it was called, the get movie details. So we're not going to go in as much detail because it's going to be really similar to the previous videos. So let's start in our remote data source. We're going to say future. It's also going to be a future because we're working with APIs. Movie details, get movie details. It's going to take a string ID if I'm not mistaken. And this is going to be async. Yeah, it takes the ID. And guys, if I didn't mention last time, the reason why we need a future here and the reason we're using async is certain operations like network calls can take quite a long time because it doesn't just depend on our own computers, our own phones. It depends on, in this case, it depends on the network, the server, and sometimes that can take a long time. So to avoid blocking the rest of the app, we can write async code, which basically says we'll start running this now, but we won't finish running this until later. We're not going to get the response until later. That's what the future is. Future means in the future, we'll get a movie details, but for right now, go ahead and do the next operation. Now in our app, it doesn't really mean anything because there is no next operation, as it were. We are dependent on this result, but we could do some kind of animation in the meantime. We could have some kind of loading spinner or something like that, or different things. But okay, so similar to before, we're going to have a final response equals await, and we can use the same client. I can't type, client.get. And this time we're going to use a different search URL. First of all, we don't have the page this time, it doesn't make sense. And second of all, so I had this pulled up. This time we're just using I as the parameter. So we should already have the base URL here. So what we're going to do is just say base URL. And then after this, we're going to have the and to mean we have some kind of parameter, I. And again, I'm getting this I from right here. And then we're going to set this equal to and whatever ID is passed in. And that's all there is to it, nice and simple. Then as before, we'll say if response.statusCode not equal to 200, then we're going to throw an exception, and I'm just going to say server error, server exception. But really I could say anything, and maybe this isn't even really correct because, for example, if I didn't have a internet connection, I might get an error, but it's not a server error. But I did want to simplify it a bit. And then as before, I'm just going to return a movie details from JSON, which of course does not exist yet. And I'm going to return json.decode response.body, and there will be no page here. Sorry, I was copying this thing by just out of habit, but that was not correct. So one of the things it's going to have is this status code, but the main data is going to be in the body. Now, in this case, the body is going to be the JSON here. And again, my Chrome is making it look nice, but in reality, it looks like this. This is what my computer is receiving, just one big long string like this. But if we went to an actual website, for example, if we went to Instagram, then the response.body would be the actual page. It would contain all of the HTML and all that stuff. So yeah, we could also pass that and do different things, but it's not what we're doing here. Okay, so our movie details does not have the fromJson. So same as before, we're going to open this up, and I'm actually going to put my search results on the side, just so I don't have to think so much, because I have an example right next to me. Even if you know how to do these things, there's nothing wrong with using your previous code as an example. I do this all the time. I'm just looking, this is not formatted correctly. And why am I getting an error? I deleted that by accident. Okay, and some of you might be wondering why I don't just do something like this. There are some packages, some extensions which will generate these to JSON, to map, from map functions for me. The reason I'm not doing this is because you can see the results I'm getting, map title, does not actually match the way they have it here. And I'm not going to call my variables the way they have them here, because this isn't the way to do it in Flutter. If I were to try that here, if I were to say string title, I should get a linting error, which is exactly what you're seeing here. Name non-constants, blah, blah, blah. Essentially in Flutter, this is a class. So this would be very confusing if I did that. And the other reason is because of things like this, my ratings. My movie ratings, if I look here, actually this is fine because they use the to map. So this is fine. But sometimes I want this thing to be custom as well. But yeah, basically this isn't quite what I'm... You know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to use this. I don't need the toMap function. They have Json code source, that's fine. I'm never going to be saving it to JSON, so I don't need this. And then the only thing I need to do is to update the names. If you guys are wondering how I did that, I have some extension installed which allows me to right click and control click. Doesn't want to do it now. Yeah, okay, I can just click on this for now. And it allows me to generate different things, generate toString, equality. This is what I'm using now, JSON serialization, copy with. Copy with is another one that I use often. I don't need it here. Yeah, so copy with is really nice, and so on. Unfortunately, I cannot remember what the extension is called. Let's quickly look through our... It's this one. It's Dart Data Class Generator over here by Ben Dixmer. I'm pretty sure it's this one. I hope it's this one. Otherwise I just told you guys the wrong one, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so yeah, that should do it for me. I just need to update this. So director, writer, actors, plot, language, country, awards, ratings. I want to double check that. That's correct, yeah. Metascore. This one they leave the lowercase. Then this is all uppercase. Please excuse all the noise coming from my laptop. It sounds like it's dying. Okay, and response. There we go. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to do is set defaults for these just in case something comes back null, because there absolutely will be situations where a lot of these values are going to come back null. This one is Star Wars A New Hope. You know, it's quite a popular movie, so we have a lot of information about it. But there will be movies which have much less info, and a lot of these are just going to come back as null. And same as before, I don't want that crashing my app, which is why I'm doing this. Question mark means if it's null, then use something else. In this case, I'm using empty strings. And speaking of that, nobody has caught it yet, but there is actually a bug on the previous video. And the reason I'm leaving it in is because I want the app to crash and I want you guys to see me debug it. But for this one, I'm leaving it as is. This one doesn't exist yet. If the ratings, movie rating, that was it. I can't remember if all of these were strings. They were all strings, so that's fine. So as you guys can see, I do not want any nulls in my application. Again, reason being, if you have nulls, then that can cause your app to crash. In fact, what was I going to say? My mind's just gone. In fact, Flutter is currently working on null safety. So in the future, programs are going to handle nulls much better, but we're not quite there yet. Okay, and really quickly, so why am I giving false as a default value to response rather than the empty string like everything else? It's because, as we discussed last time, this response should come back as true if my search works. So if I type in random stuff, I should get response false, right? So I should always be getting false or true. However, if something goes wrong, if there's some kind of server exception or whatever, if this API just stops working or anything like that, then I would end up getting a null value. And in my application, what I'm doing is I'm going to check for this false. And if it's false, I'm going to say that we didn't find something. So if I get that null value, I want it to be treated as if it was a false value. Okay, so that's all fine. Now what I need to do is go to movie rating and do the same thing. Generate the JSON serializable. In this case, I do not need the to map to JSON. What I do need is the from map and the from JSON. If I didn't tell you guys last time, so the source of course is one big string, and when we use json.decode here, which of course comes from the Dart convert package, what this is going to do is take that big long string and turn it into a map of string where the keys are going to be like these ones, source, value, and so on. And the values are going to be dynamic. In our case, I believe these are always going to be strings, but that's not always the case, which is why we use string dynamic. So yeah, this one, I don't think I need to change anything. The only thing I'm going to do is give these the types. And the reason I'm doing this is because this is coming back as dynamic, which is exactly what I would expect, but I have value and source set as strings. And in fact, that makes me think I don't have a linter installed, because a linter should have told me to do this. This probably won't cause my app to crash, but basically right here, Dart cannot infer the types. Now, I've had this discussion with a few people in the comments. A few people pointed out that in different places where I strongly type my variables, I don't need to do that, and they're correct. For example, I could say, this doesn't belong here, I'm just showing an example. I could say something like var new string equals new string, and here I don't need to type it because this is a string. Dart can infer this. It sees that it's a string and it knows it's a string. Now for me personally, I always prefer to say string new string. You don't need to do this, but I like to do it. I will always do it, and I will not do things like this. Sometimes when using final, I get lazy and I leave it, especially in a for loop, for final item in something. This is the same thing. I tend not to type it just out of laziness, I guess, but normally in this declaration I would. However, at this point, Dart cannot infer the type because it's coming back as dynamic, and it could be different things in different situations. It doesn't know what the value is at compile time. So This is why you should be strongly typing. If I had a linter installed, which I thought I did, but apparently I don't, a linter should have told me to type them. And in fact, just thinking if I need to change anything else, I'm pretty sure this is it. And in fact, I should probably do the same thing in all of these. And another thing I should probably do is actually put my linter on so that it tells me. In fact, let's do that since we're here anyway, since we're talking about this. I'm on pubspec.yaml, add update dev dependencies, lint, this is the package I normally use. You can see it's added it here. Then I'm going to do a new file, analysis options.yaml, not dot, and I put this in the wrong place. It belongs in the same folder as our pubspec.yaml. And then I'm going to include package analysis options. Hold on. Package lint analysis options .yaml, maybe, I'm not sure. I cannot remember by heart, so what I'm going to do is actually go to lint, and here it is. There we go. Okay. Notice that now that I've done this, it's telling me that the argument type dynamic can't be assigned to the parameter type string. The other thing I didn't mention is notice this is coming back as an actual error, not just a warning. The reason for this is because, as I mentioned, Dart cannot infer the types, and sometimes that's fine, many times that's fine. However, if you don't type it and if you get the wrong type, you can crash your app. Because here I set this as a string, but if one of these variables comes back as an int and I set it as a string, then I'm gonna get an error. So we definitely should be strongly typing in this situation. What I'm gonna do is copy paste this and then pressing Ctrl D, that allows us to select multiple things. And I went one too far because it didn't recognize the last one. Then the left arrow, Ctrl V. And the same thing here. Do you know what I could do? I'm going to change my response into bool. And here I'm going to say map.response equals true, and I'll put as a string. And then I'm going to put the question mark after it so it becomes a ternary operator. And then I'm going to say true, false. So if the map response comes back as string, comes back as the value true, I'm going to set it equal to true, and if it doesn't, I'm going to set it equal to false. And the reason this is giving me a warning is because this doesn't make sense. why am I doing the if? Because I already have the equals and it's going to give me exactly what I want. So that was actually a little bit pointless. Okay, this is giving me an error for the same reason. Document type X, and I forget which one exactly, as map string dynamic and iterable dynamic. I believe that's where it goes. I might have to put this outside of the brackets. Yep, that was it for this. And this one is map string dynamic, not this one, I believe. There we go. Okay. And now what we're going to get is the same thing in all of these. Now that I put the linter here, it's warning me about all those places where I could have crashed my app. Notice this? I told you guys there's an error somewhere. Now that I have the linter, it's telling me ahead of time. So I left this on purpose because I wanted to crash my app, but because of the linter, it's not letting me crash my app. So this actually protected me. Just gonna set all of these to string. This one as int. This should be final. If you're curious about list, why am I able to make the list final even though I'm changing it, is because you know what, this is not a topic I want to get into right now. The list is actually just a pointer to the list. It's not the list itself. It's not the items in the list. I do not want to go into that right now. Never mind. I'm just thinking, I feel like I'm missing something. No, because I'm doing this by hand, so that's fine. I can close that. Now, this. But I don't think that's correct, because yeah, this is a string, it should be correct. And the code should be taking as dynamic. Oh, I need to put it outside. It's map string dynamic. That's interesting that the return type on this, they call it dynamic. The return type is always going to be a map string dynamic, or at least usually. Sometimes it could be like a map string string, map string int, but normally it's a map string dynamic. Annotate overridden nape things. Override. Override as map string dynamic. Really? A string. Because they're decoding it for me, whereas I wanted to decode it myself. So what I can do actually is I can just say response.body here, right? Because I used the code generation to make that thing for me. It already has the JSON.decode, which before I was doing it myself inside the when I was passing it into the function, which is probably not a good thing to do. You're not supposed to combine different things in different places. And this one needs to be typed as map string dynamic at this point. So now we have this one written by hand, whereas this one isn't, which is why this one's using JSON.decode, whereas this one is not. And we've typed these, that's fine. Have we typed, we don't need to type that one. Have we typed move view rating? We have, okay. So that should be fine. And I'm just thinking, I know I need to change something else here. This needs to be changed. Add override. Because it doesn't return void, it returns a future void. I was thinking of something different. There's no override there. There's going to be a wait, async. The reason I'm having to change this to future void is because any async method is returning a future. So the futures then can be typed, and in this case it's a future void because it's not actually returning anything. But the fact that it's an async means that it is returning a future, but the future is returning void. Okay, and I think that's it. Let's what have I done? I'm trying to open this thing so I can see any other problems. So I hadn't updated this. It's fine. This one I'm going to leave. And that's my API key, so I'm not going to open it. BG gradient here. They say... Why did I name it like this? That's weird. And then a whole bunch of consts, which we're not going to go over now. Okay guys, so that was it. So what we've done in this video is similar to the previous videos. We continued building out our movie ratings, our movie details. We wrote the from map from JSON, but this time we used an extension to automate a lot of it for us. And then once we installed the linter, it told us that we need to type things. And I had even left a little bug in the previous code, which I was planning on crashing the app and then showing you guys how to debug that. But because of the linter, it has prevented me from crashing my app. So that's definitely a good thing. So that's going to be it for this time. Be sure to join us next time when I'm going to do... I can't even remember what the next part is. But yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are as well. In the meantime, myself with videos, I'm out. Take care, guys.